Hi there guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today you're joining me in a Mercedes-Benz C63 AMG Premium Estate. It's actually the first video I've done for a little while, so I do apologise. I've just been horrendously busy with the showroom, trying to implement a few things on that side of it. And a few of you have actually reached out to me. You've sent me emails and we've had a bit of a catch up and everything, which is always nice, and I always appreciate that. And of course the subscribers are still coming through, so if you're not yet subscribed, please do hit that subscribe button. It really does help. But today, going back to the video, you're joining me in a Mercedes-Benz C63. These have been iconic. They've been phenomenal cars ever since they were first introduced, and in my opinion they've only got better. You know, there was a little bit of an onslaught when it came to the fact that it wasn't actually a 6.3 V8 or it's a 6.2 V8. In this era of the Mercedes, they went for the 4-litre V8 bi-turboed, so it still produces 470 brake horsepower, and you do get a lovely V8 burble, albeit a 4-litre rather than the 6.2. It does feel quicker, however. I have driven both. They're both ludicrous, and you do actually wonder how it is possible that Mercedes-Benz are allowed to sell these to the public. As long as you've got the money and a driving licence, you can jump into one of these, and that almost seems ludicrous because they are just erratic, and you do have to have your wits about you when you're driving them. You can turn various different functions off, but we'll kind of go through that and as we go through this video. But this one here is finished in brilliant blue. It's not the most exciting name, but it is a lovely colour to have, and because it is the AMG and the C63, you do actually get proper leather. So in their ordinary road going cars such as the C220 diesels or the C250 petrols, any of those that aren't the AMG, they do what they call an Artico leather as standard. It's an artificial leather. It looks all right, it feels all right, but to have the real leather, to have the real deal, it is nicer. You do get a more comfortable seat, and it just feels that little bit more executive. And I think that any of the C-Class lineup, whether it be the SE saloons to estates, to any of those, to the convertibles, I think they all look executive. I think they've really got it spot on within this era. They still look modern to this day, and they have a few of the trick bits that will keep it modern throughout as well. Obviously, they ran from 2014 right up until 2019 when they looked like this, and then of course they changed to their later model lineup on from there. So this one here being the C63, it is the most exciting of the bunch, and you can still obviously get the 5 adults in. You still get a nice big boot space in there as well. It's about 470 litres if I remember correctly. You still get some creature comforts. You get the electric heated memory seats. Being the premium, you get the panoramic sunroof, which is lovely. The Burmester sound system, which not only sounds fantastic, but I think it looks gorgeous in the car as well. I love that speaker cover, really quite smart. Brushed aluminium trim on the door cards, and then this one here has got the piano black, which is just the plain black if you like, because you can get some wood ash trims and things like that. So it looks fantastic in my opinion. I do really think so. And the fact that you're in an AMG, you do get the subtle hints that you are as well. So you've got a nice AMG badge at the bottom of the steering wheel. The paddle shifters in this one here, they're actually a metal finish, which is quite nice to have as against the plastic ones that you get in the ordinary road going car. So what they have done well is that they've defined the difference between a non-AMG and an AMG to be subtly different, because a non-AMG is still a very executive car, but this one does make you feel a bit more special, and it lets you know that you are in an AMG. So the build quality is fantastic. I mean, this one here is a 2016. It's done 48,000 miles. You wouldn't necessarily know that it'd done those miles. The seat bolsters or anything, they look like they're new. None of the brushed aluminium or anything like that is marked or scratched, it's a real letdown actually in certain manufacturers when you do get brushed aluminium. It's very easy to dent and very easy to scratch, but this one here, it looks as if it was picked up from the showroom yesterday, and I think it's credit to people that own them as well. So when you own a C63, you'd like to think you know there's a bit of a special car, and you really do look after it. But going back to the exciting stuff, so the 4-litre V8, it produces 470 brake horsepower. It has a 0 to 62 time in 4.2 seconds, which is just mind-boggling to me. It really is. And that's paired with the 7G Tronic gearbox in this particular one, and later on it does go to the 9-speed. But the 7G, it really does handle it brilliantly. You can get a 4MATIC version, which is the 4-wheel drive. This one here is purely rear-wheel drive. I quite like that fact. I think if you're going to have this monstrous German engine with their engineering and everything like that, it should be a rear-wheel drive car. I imagine that the 4MATIC probably feels a little bit more stable on the road and maybe a bit more secure, because you do actually notice that when you put your foot down in this thing, you are being pushed. You can feel that from the rear wheels. It's really pushing you along, which is great. I mean, that's what you want from a C63. You want to be able to drive and know that it is in your control a little bit, in the sense of, like, you know, you've got to be having your wits about you when you're driving this type of thing. But I think that's more obviously adding to the experience of what this car is. So to talk a little bit more in depth about the spec on this car, of course I've already mentioned it comes with all the trick bits, but steering wheel is really nice and easy to use. You've got your volume controls over on the right hand side here, and then you've got some centre controls on that'll actually do your centre dash, so you can get like trip computer, navigation, radio and things like that. Because it's the AMG, it also has an AMG graphic, which is quite cool. It tells you how much of your boost that you're using, which is quite a cool thing to have. It also tells you your oil temperature and your gearbox temperature as well, which is a specific thing to the AMG. So it'll actually tell you if it's too cold, please don't, you know, go throttling it just yet. Let it warm up a little bit more, because of course the only thing that you get in ordinary cars, and you don't really need much more than that, but you get the coolant temperature, but that isn't engine oil temperature or gearbox temperature, so that's quite a nice thing to have. You get the nice bigger information screen on the centre as well, or your media screen, so you can call it, and it's a command navigation as standard. So it's a really crisp and clear display on there too. I've mentioned in previous Mercedes videos that I've done, it's good when you know what you're doing with it. There are a few different variants with your dial down here and your touch sensitive pad to get across different menus. So you get these subheadings, which is nice and easy. So if I click onto media, it'll go through to my phone, and then this dial here, I can scroll across menus, or I can actually knock it backwards or forwards, much like a BMW iDrive system. But I don't know what it is about the Merc one. It's not quite as simple as the BMW one. I think it's because this sits over the top, and you can quite easily use that as well. So you can scroll across using just a touch sensitive pad, and you can go up and down menus and things like that. Once you get your head around it, relatively easy to do. You've got front and rear parking sensors, and you've got the optical displays as well. The front sensors actually come up on your centre dash here, and then you can look in your mirror, and on the roof in the back there you've got another optical display which shows you what your rear sensors do. Which is a really clever way of doing it in my mind. I see so many people when they're reversing cars looking over the shoulder, and I think, well, that's a little bit silly, because you have mirrors. You can just, you know, your perception's off when you look over your shoulder. So when you've got that, and you can actually see it in your rear view mirror as to how close you get in, I think that's a really handy thing to have. You get electric heated power fold mirrors with the anti-dazzle, which is a really nice thing to have. It also has, in this one, the LED intelligent lighting system. That's phenomenal. That's brilliant. I've seen it on other cars as well. I've seen it on a BMW 7 Series that I had for a weekend, and a few other bits and pieces. But essentially what it does is, when you've got your adaptive lights on of a night time and you go around corners, it does your corner and assist. That's nothing too special. But what it does with the LED adaptive suspension lighting system on this one here is that when there's a car coming the other way, it blocks the high beam just where that car is. So it keeps everything in front of you illuminated as best as possible. It almost does like a cut around of the car in front and does the other side. And it does it all instantly, and it's a really, really clever system. So the intelligent lighting system that Mercedes use is brilliant. The only thing I will say though, and this exact car had to have a couple of new modules fitted on the headlights, because I noticed they weren't quite working as they should have been. So when you get a car with this much tech on it, you have to bear in mind that you might have to have a little bit more of a repair cost if something were to go wrong. So there's 2 modules per headlight, and they go to a separate module which control them. So you have to just bear that in mind, in the sense that you get all of this tech, it's absolutely fantastic to use, but something has to run that tech, and if that goes wrong, then it can be quite expensive to repair it, which in this case it was, because it needs to be coded, and in order to be coded you have to have the Mercedes diagnostic star system, they call it, and they charge you every time you plug it in. So it's one of those things where it's done now, it'll be sorted, I'm sure. And as a whole, Mercedes are very well known for reliability so I have no further issues with it, but you do just have to bear it in mind if you are looking at getting one. In terms of the spec though, it is relatively easy to use on the subheadings. You've got your dual climate control, electric heated memory seats on here, which are really easy to use, and your heated seat button just on that there. So it is ever so easy. It's just this, what they've got, their version of iDrive, that's the only bit that's a little bit complicated. I'm not going to let that put me off the car though, because once you get your head around it, it's a good system to use. So just to demonstrate a little bit about what this engine can do, I'm actually backing up on a country road just to make sure I've got nothing in front of me, because it is, you know, kind of that quick. So I'm just in comfort mode, nothing out of the ordinary. But if I put my foot down now, so I'm doing 30. Now that is such a special feeling, and I'm not saying I'm a professional racing driver or anything like that, but you do have to have your wits about you when you put your foot down in this car. You can feel it, you can feel the back end of the car trying to just push you along. It would overtake you if it could. It's that kind of competitive, and that was just in comfort mode, and the engine note is purely a natural engine note as well. It doesn't come through the speakers like some performance cars do or anything like that. It is just that note coming from the exhaust at the back. Sounds fantastic, puts a smile on your face every time you do it. You can choose your dynamic drive select on this little knob down here. You can put it into Sport and Sport Plus. So it actually has an active baffle in the exhaust, so when you're in Sport and Sport Plus mode, it will pop and bang a little bit more as well. But it just makes you want to do it all of the time, which isn't necessarily good for your fuel bill, or also your driving license if you do it in the wrong areas. But it is, you know, just a phenomenal bit of kit. The MPG, you have to bear in mind, it is a 4-litre V8, obviously. So we'll go through from the start. So on the country roads that I've been doing, it's at 25.7 miles to the gallon. And when you think about the performance that this car gives you at 470 brake and the amazing 0 to 62 time, it's not too bad when you're just taking it easy going down the country roads. And when you put it into Sport and Sport Plus mode, you can change the dynamics of your engine and the suspension. So in Sport Plus mode, when your suspension's in a Sport Plus setting, it's really tough on you. I mean, it's fantastic. If you were to take this to a track, I'm sure it'd be an amazing track car. But when you're on an everyday country road like I am where I live, you feel every nook and cranny on the road. It is ever so stiff. Even rumble strips and things like that, they become almost uncomfortable. You can, however, put it into an individual mode, and what that does is your own configuration. So you can have the engine in a Sport and a Sport Plus mode whilst keeping your suspension in comfort. And let's be honest, the suspension in comfort in this car, it isn't like it's not ready to take the corners that you want to take or anything like that. It's still a very, very sporty feeling car. So bringing it back up onto that as well, you can also change the dynamics of your gearbox as to how harsh you want your gear change to be. They also do that in the M cars as well. It's like the ferocity of your gear shift and things like that. So it is an ever so exciting car to drive. Absolutely love the engineering and the performance that goes into it. The only con that I would have, and it's not even the fuel cost or anything like that, because there's many pros that we've been through. You get fantastic practicality, you've got a huge boot, looks great, you get the creature comforts and everything like that. It's a very, very pleasant place to be. Why wouldn't it be with all of the tech and all of the bits that go into an AMG car? And the con isn't the running cost as such, it's the running cost when you're not able to use the car to its potential. And what I mean by that is it's perfectly demonstrated on today's drive. I am currently sat behind an old Doris in a VW Up, which for some reason needs additional wing mirrors for such a small car, and we're on a national speed limit road with lots of lovely bends and curves and everything like that, but we're doing 36 miles an hour. And that's the sad thing about it. I'm actually going to go for the overtake here. Oh. I mean, just tremendous. That wasn't even full throttle. That was just coasting it along. But the con is how often are you going to be able to use this car to potential that the car can give you? That's my only upset with it, really, because it's lovely having all of this additional spec, and it's lovely having the engine. It's fantastic. I'd love to own it, absolutely. It's in my showroom, it's in my stock. You're very welcome to check out all the specs and everything on the website. Really a tremendous vehicle. It's the difficulty with where I live with country roads is how often am I going to be able to put this car to its potential when I could realistically get a C300D Premium Plus with the pan roof, with all the spec and everything like that, get twice the MPG relatively easily, and won't necessarily have the fear every time I put the foot down of the car trying to overtake itself. Although you could turn that around to a Pro. Am I just convincing myself, really? Because that is also a Pro, that you do get this phenomenal engine note as well, and you do get a huge amount of performance. And the gear changes are fantastic, the steering is fantastic, the sporty agility of this car is otherworldly. Maybe I am just convincing myself that I should have a C63. It's great. I've got a dog, so the Estate's definitely the one to have, because he can go in the back there. I don't have any kids, but it's great for the practicality of having those 5 seats. Ignore that con, actually. Let's bring it around back into a Pro that it makes you just want to go out forward drive. But even then, like, you know, you hear that pop and the bang, you cannot keep your head straight up. And if you put your foot down too much, because none of that is full throttle, but if you put your foot down too much, the rear wheels will try and spin. I've had it at about 60 miles an hour, and you try and put your foot down, you're in a Sport Plus, and the rear wheels spin. And that's what I mean when it's ludicrous that you're allowed to go and just buy this car. As long as you've got a driving license and the money to do so, you have access to this absolutely phenomenal bit of engineering, and I do love it. So yeah, the only con, as I say, is not so much the running cost, it's the being able to use a car like this. But on the slight moments you do get to do it, and you've got an empty road and you know that it's safe, and it is ever so good. It's a really fun car to have. The Premium is the one that I would go for as well, because you do get that panoramic sunroof, you get the Burmester sound system, you get the keyless entry and the keyless start, which is quite nice to have, and the AMG of course comes with all of the AMG steering wheel and the nicer paddle shifts and everything like that, which I've already mentioned. So it all comes down to how well it's been maintained. This one, as I've already mentioned, has only done 48,000 miles, got a full Mercedes-Benz service history throughout. And when it comes to a performance car, you'd realistically want to take it back to the main dealership, or at least a specialist in that main dealership if you don't want to pay their prices, which is completely fair enough. But you really need to find someone who knows what they're doing, it's fair to say. Oh, I'll turn that on there off. Yeah, you want to go to someone that really does know what they're doing with these type of cars, and that can look after it. As I say, they do depreciate rather quickly. I mean, this would have been over £60,000 new, and I've got it in my showroom now as it stands for 31,995, so call it 32,000. So it's lost 50% relatively quickly. And I think with a premium car like a C63, there is a baseline for them. It doesn't mean that in another 6 years it's going to be half again. I don't think you'll ever get down that low, because even on the older shape C63s, they're never even going to become close to that if you've got a nice low mileage example. So definitely one to look out for. The Estates are fantastic because they do give you that bit of practicality. I think they look fantastic as well. I prefer the look of the Estate to the Saloon, but the Saloon still looks really menacing. You get big AMG brakes as standard. You can also get some that have got the ceramic brakes, which are fantastic for performance wise, but really expensive if you need to replace them. So maybe steer clear of that one a little bit if you can, unless you've got the money to replace ceramic brakes. Who am I to say? But thank you ever so much for watching the video. I do really hope that you've enjoyed it, and of course I'm hoping now moving forward, I've managed to sort out a few bits showroom side of it, so I'm hoping to upload more content as I go. If you like the video, please do give it a thumbs up, and of course if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do. It always really helps, and I look forward to seeing you for the next one. Thank you.